talks about the prototypical left and how Clinton and the Klan and their clan were not, and most of Hollywood are not the prototypical left. But my argument is, if you go back into history, which of course Lionel doesn't recognize because this is Trotsky's view. So let's go back into Trotsky. What do we see with Trotsky? You know, his iconic view of Trotsky. What's the reality behind Trotsky? Well, Trotsky was part of the Russian Revolution. He was there with Vladimir Lenin. So he was there. He was there with Stalin. He was on the Bolshevik side of things. And you look there, you see there wasn't simply one communist group. There wasn't just one revolutionary party. There were multiple. It was like it is today, where the liberal left is a mishmash of a variety of different groups, just like the right is a mishmash of a variety of different groups. They have a common core of understanding, but how you approach this common core is to many degrees different. They have various different variations, if you will. Sort of using the same word over and over again, but and it actually, in many cases, reflects, if you want to go into the Jewish community and take a look at the rabbinical community, the rabbinical communities are also split because each individual rabbi has the authority to form his own particular group and define things the way he sees fit. And so what happens, the Talmud is sort of a collection of thoughts on how things should go and how they shouldn't go. So it becomes a common collective, a common understanding. And of course, things vary from that common core from one side to the other side. And this is what you see in Trotsky, but what you see in communism all the way throughout, from Trotsky and so on and so forth, because he was assassinated in 1940 in Mexico. How did he end up in Mexico being assassinated? Well, it turns out that not everyone's on the same page. Everyone wants to be the leader. Everyone's writing their own books. Everyone wants to. There are Trotskyites. There are Leninists. There are Stalinists. They're all name the Marxist. Name the communist, and you'll see that almost every communist in the revolution grew up to become their own figurehead. They will have their own Marxist ideology. So the Clintons have their Marxist ideology, right? Obama and the people who follow Obama, the Obamites, they are the Obamists. They have their view of what social left communism is. So there isn't one specific, just like Lionel LeBron has his own definition of what things are and what they aren't. Right? He has his own cores of this is okay and that's not okay. He talks about absolute truths or absolute rights or absolute morality. And for him, one of his absolutes is you can't be sleeping with children. Right? But yet, if you go back into the history of socialism and sort of the understanding of socialism in terms of their the moral theories, you'll find that this is not the case here. All you have to do is look at Alfred Kinsey and understand what he was producing, and then go back and look at some of the understandings of Marxism and understand what they were talking about with the family and everything, how the state replaces the family. And you can see this actually with Trotsky. You can see how the Marxist communism destroys his family. And he ends up, not only his wife is killed before him, but also his two daughters die. And I think there could have been something done that but the thing is that the focus was on the revolution, the focus was on the cause, and the family kind of fell apart and fell to one side. Instead of saying, hey, let's focus on the family. And this is something that has a psychology to it. But it also can, as I said before, psychology is a bizarre thing because the people like Freud, Wilhelm Wundt, or Stanley Milgram didn't believe that the whole foundation of psychology is based on the belief that there is no soul. The man as a human being is fundamentally an animal. That we are mechanically driven, we are chemically driven, and that consciousness, our conscious behavior is a byproduct of this. And the thing is, but they can't determine, they haven't been able to determine in any way. They have no evidence that this is the case. Now, the thing is, you go into physics, you go into astronomy, and this causes a lot of problems because there was a significant change to the philosophies that sort of backed the communist or socialist understanding of things. Because before they were in a theoretical understanding that scientific, they had and you'll hear Lionel talk about this, talk about a scientific truth. Well, in 1945, that scientific truth was gone. This was the existential crisis that hit the socialist community, the Western thought, which was based on liberalism. It hit like a rock. Prior to 1945, it was modernism. There was scientific truth. There was absolutes. After 1945, everything became probabilistic. We talk about deterministic science and undeterministic science. I'm an undeterministic scientist. I follow that path. Most scientists will not follow that path because most of the universities are still within the sort of the deterministic path. They haven't left that path. They're trying to put things back together after the collapse. And what caused the collapse? Well, it was the atomic bomb.
Provoke, inform, and change. We deal with issues that other networks won't.
Well, one might ask, why would the atomic bomb cause such a problem? Well, this is what Edward Bernays was kind of working on in the beginning. He didn't know what was happening, but the governments understood. The governments understood in order to do weapons development, weapons design, that they had to have programs that were secret and ways to disguise these programs and sort of hide them in plain sight. This became the origins of a lot of the sort of the alien understandings of things, the sort of the alien invasions, the alien beings, ET. This came out of this sort of framework to create a cover for what was going on. This is what MK Ultra has the same thing. There's a cover for MK Ultra, and this is why you can look at Stanley Milgram and see, okay, this is sort of an aspect of MK Ultra. Same thing with Dr. Philip Zimbardo. You can follow that and his work in Stanford University and see what he did and say, okay, this is MK Ultra. And the interesting thing is about Dr. Philip Zimbardo. Dr. Philip Zimbardo looks at and sees the mechanisms and actually creates the mechanism for today's police forces that caused Ferguson. You want to wonder why cops shoot black people. Well, there's a psychology to this, and this was done in 1970, and this was found out. So it's being done specifically in terms of a crowd control to create an element of fear. And it's a bizarre thing because on one side they want the people to be afraid, but at the same time they also want to create an uprising, a communist revolution. And the way you create a communist revolution is by agitating an environment or a society to a point where they explode and bubble over with anger. And so what happens, the people in the agitation don't see the individual agitators creating the environment. What they see is the problem, and they're being told the problem is this. And that if you overthrow this government, you overthrow this authority, so to speak, that this will solve your problems. Well, this is the whole concept that Trotsky was bringing forward. This is what Marxist was bringing forward. And we can see from history, the history of the Soviet Union, what ended up happening. We saw the collapse of the Soviet Union. We saw things fall apart. And it was a horrible falling apart. We saw the prison camps. We saw that the so-called re-education camps with the gulags. We saw these things. We saw the assassinations. Right? You succeeded in Soviet politics by assassinating the leader. There was continuous. Once the revolution started in 1917. Or 1914, once the revolution started, it continued on. There was a continuous revolution from Vladimir Lenin all the way through to Mikhail Gorbachev. That's actually how you ended with Mikhail. This is how you get what's his name? I can't remember what is the last one who was in there before Putin came in. It was all succession by assassination. It was all revolution, revolution, counter-revolution, counter-revolution, counter-revolution. And Trotsky was involved in this. You go down and you read the works that Trotsky had done and what he had done in his environment. You see him go from this idealistic Marxist and some of the fomenting that he had to do, and he was one of these agitators. He was the one who would go to these protests and start causing problems, start igniting these violence, and creating this making sure that the police fired back on the crowd. Even though there were a few agitators in the crowd causing the problem, the police would overreact and fire back into the crowd. This is the way they were trained. And that's what these agitators do. These agitators create violence in the crowd. So all of a sudden now you have something that wouldn't have been a tragedy, it would have been a peaceful protest. Now it becomes a violent protest because of the agitators. This is the communist revolution. This is the Marxist understanding of things. This is the communist understanding. This is the socialist understanding that revolution, burning down society, and from the ashes of that old society, that you create the new one. This is in nihilism. This is also in the anarchists. The anarchists are a form of socialism as well. They have their own particular ideologies, right? And no one group is any more than the other. Look at the French Revolution. Go back to Robespierre and understand how many different counter-revolutions after Robespierre there was. There was revolution after revolution. This is how Napoleon came into France. I mean, this is in many cases the nature of revolution, and this can be seen in Trotsky, and it's also can be seen when we're talking about today about the Trump revolution. It's the same thing here. You're seeing the same result from the left, from the liberal left. You're seeing the same anger. You're seeing the same violence. You're seeing the same agitation. You're seeing the history of communism, of socialism, of the liberal left in today. Even though they're excused and say, oh, they're not the liberal left, they are a neoliberal. Go look at their philosophy. Look at where they came from. Go back and look at Trotsky. Do a study on Trotsky and see what happened to him. How he evolved and what happened to him. Go back and look at Dostoevsky. Read his work. Understand how he came to be what he was. And you'll see a parallel. You'll start seeing a parallel in history. And this stuff is not pointed out in the textbooks. This is what I'm saying. The historical textbooks, they're wrong. You look at history from the textbook side of things, from the official point of view, you're not going to see anything. Because everything is protected. All the information is don't look outside the box. They're training you to think within a specific framework and to not look outside that framework. So in history today, we're learning history today that we're being taught, you'd be learning the history of modern Europe, where you're learning European history. We're learning white history, and of course they bring in just for token's sake. And this is what affirmative action is. Affirmative action is simply tokenism. It's not based on the actual attributes of the person. It's based on you're black. We need X number of blacks. We need X number of this and X number. It's a quota system.